Hey, this is JP, and today I'm going to share with you the 10 books that I want to read before the end of the year. The mid-year book freakout tag usually ends with the question of what are some books that you're hoping to read before the end of the year. And while I wanted to answer that question in the previous video, it was already getting a bit long, so I just decided to make a separate video for that, and this is it. So I've divided the books into three categories. The first one is the books that are literally in the waiting list of the library. So those are probably the books that I'll be picking up next. Obviously, I put up a reservation at the library because I'm really excited to get to them. The second category are books that I already own and that I maybe had for a while and I just want to get to. And then the last one is book continuations, so books that are parts of series. One of my goals this year is to finish series, or at least continue series that I've already started, and so the third category is kind of that. So let's get started. The first book that I've reserved in the library is Her Body and Other Parts by Carmen Maria Machado. This is a short story collection by an author that I've never read any book from in the past, but a couple of years ago, Florence Welch, who is my favorite singer, she posted a story that she was loving this book, and I think the author is fairly popular in other spheres of booktube, and I think this book in particular has gotten very popular recently. I'm not sure. I just have seen it around, and since I already knew about it, I got really interested into it, so I really want to read it. The next book is The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. This is a sci-fi space opera that I have no information about at all. Like, I don't know anything about this other than Angela from Literature Science Alliance has recommended it for a long time now, and it really fit the squares of a book challenge that I'm doing this year. So I saw it at the library and I just thought to pick it up. Also, the cover is very pretty, which, always extra points for that. I know it has some queer representation, which is always nice to have, and it's always cool to read new POC authors. So yeah, I'm really excited to pick this one up. The last book that I have on the waiting list is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. That's not the right pronunciation because I know the original story is written in French and this is a translation. And I also don't know so much about this story either. The booktuber Emily from Books with Emily Fox has also recommended this book for a couple of years now, almost in every video, and I really like her. I just know that this is a story about survival, and I think a woman is the main protagonist. I think this is set in a post-apocalyptic world. It sounds like it's best to not know so much about it, so that's what I'm doing. So let's get to the next category of books that I already own that I want to read before the end of the year. And I'm going to start with Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. And this is a story that is told in two parts. You have a woman that is in an underwater expedition. I think she's in a submarine. She experiences something that changes her in some way. And I think this part is told kind of like a horror story. And the other part of the book, and I think you alternate between these two perspectives, is told from the perspective of her wife, who waits for her. I actually think that that part of the story is once this woman comes back to land, and how these two women need to live together and kind of reconcile with the fact that because of the experiences that the wife lived under the sea, she has changed meaningfully in some way or another, and so it's kind of how do we live with each other after we have changed so much. I think that's kind of what it is about, and yeah, it sounds super thrilling. Now I'm going to continue with Nine Fox Gambit by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is the first book in a science fiction quartet, I think. And this is space opera. I think there's a lot of math involved in the world building, which sounds super, super fascinating. And I don't know so much about it other than that, but it sounds super thrilling. And again, like, this cover is super cool. I just feel like this year I haven't read that much science fiction. I will need to look at my stats, but I feel like this year and the last year, and that's mostly because I've been reading a lot of Malazan. I have not read a lot of sci-fi recently, so I don't know. I have this, and I feel like it sounds super cool, and I just want to pick up more science fiction. And last book in this category is Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. And this is a book that I've had for a long time in my shelves, which is why I want to get to it. I bought this in an airport. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I just loved this cover. I was so captivated by the colors and the composition, and it looks so interesting. And then I read, I think here at the back or somewhere, that this was compared to Cloud Atlas, which is one of my all-time favorite books, and I was like, I need to have this book, and I instantly purchased it. I had started a couple of years ago, and then I had to pause it for reasons that I don't remember. And I just remember that there are a couple of multiple timelines. One is set kind of very far into the past, something is probably in the present, and one more probably very far into the future, a bit like Cloud Atlas maybe. And I'm imagining that in some way they connect at the end, and I just love that kind of narrative style of having seemingly unrelated stories wrap up and tie up together in a thematical, or even if this maybe, well, I don't know if the story will also connect in some way, but even if it's just thematically, I just really like that kind of narrative style. So I've had this in my shelf for way too long, and so it's time to pick Cloud Cuckoo Land up and just read it. And now we're going into the last category, which are book continuations. And I just want to get better at finishing up series that I've already started. So this is my attempt at doing that. So the first one, and a very anticipated book for me, is A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. If you don't know, Joe Abercrombie has a very famous world that's called The First Law. The First Law. And this world has one trilogy and then a couple of standalones, and then this is the first book in the second trilogy that follows some of the characters of the first trilogy, but I think there's a time jump in between. So far I've read the first trilogy and all of the standalones, so I am reading the publication order, and this is the next one. And I'm just really excited to read this because I loved that first trilogy. Joe Abercrombie has one of the most distinctive writing styles that I've read in my entire life. I still remember so many distinctive points in the story of A Blade itself, the first book in that first trilogy. And I don't know, even though people complain that these books don't have a plot, they have amazing characters, and I actually thought that that was the only thing I needed to keep me going for these kind of chunky books. Each character literally feels so distinctive and unique, and you don't even need to be told who you're reading to know the character that you're reading for that chapter, which I think is amazing, especially because there are so many POVs in these stories, and yet each of them feel so unique that you know immediately who you're reading, and I think that's fascinating. And I know this continues the story in a more kind of pre-industrial era, I think, which is going to be interesting. And so yeah, I just know that everyone says that these books are even better than the first trilogy, which is very, very exciting because I just happen to love all of those first three books. The standalones were okay. I will probably talk about The First Law World in another video one day, but yeah, I'm just in for these trilogies. The next book in the list has to be Toll the Hounds by Steven Erikson. This is the eighth book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen book series. I've been reading these for the last 6 months to a year, and I was just binging Malazan for the last 6 months, and I think I just needed to take a pause. Originally my plans were to finish the last 3 books this year, but I just couldn't. There was a lot of things happening in my life with moving around cities, and so I just needed shorter books. These Malazan books are gigantic, and thematically they're also very heavy, so they take a toll on you. You cannot really just read them back to back to back, where I kind of did. But anyways, I just needed a break from that. I don't think I will be finishing Malazan this year, but I would love to at least get to the 8th book, especially because I had already started it, and again I had to pause it. I know that this book was released right around the time where the author's wife passed away, so I know this book has a lot to do with grief and, you know, loneliness, and it's pretty dark, but also probably a lot slower. So I just need to pick it up at a time where I'm ready for all of that, and when things are happening around me where I can take a bit of that kind of slower pace. But yeah, Malazan needs to continue this year. It needs to happen. The next book is going to be Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the sequel that comes after Children of Time, also a very popular science fiction novel about a kind of hypothetical society of spiders that advances technologically, and you kind of follow this civilization from its very start to a very, very high peak in terms of technology and like socio-political structure, telecommunications. Like, it's fascinating. I really, really liked reading that maybe 2-3 years ago, and I just never continued this series. So I am really excited to continue, because I know that this book particularly follows octopi. I don't even know how you say that in plural. So yeah, intelligent octopuses, like, count me in. I don't need to know anything else. I know that Adrian Tchaikovsky knows about like biology. I don't know if he completed a degree in zoology or if it was just kind of like a hobby, but it really comes through the page, especially in that first book. So I'm really hoping that this has like a similar kind of vibe, even if it's just like a repetition of, again, we're following a society of intelligent octopuses developing through centuries. Like, I would be totally okay with that. I just want to see how they interact with other species, how they do commerce, and I don't know, I think that's just super interesting. And again, I need to read more science fiction this year, so I'm really excited to continue the Children of Whatever trilogy. For the last book of this video, I wanted to finish with a happier note, and that's going to be Heartstopper Volume 5. I've read the first 4 volumes of Heartstopper. I actually read them as they were coming out online, so I can proudly say that I am one of those OG fans that read them way before the Netflix show was announced. I even remember that when I think back then it was volume 3 or 4, I got to the end because I binged through that web comic in like 1 or 2 days. I got to the end of that and it said like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop releasing more comics because we're making a show out of this. And that's when season 1 was in production, and I was super happy when that came out. I loved the first season. I think season 2 is already out. I don't know, the show, amazing. The novels are also fantastic. So I just want to pick that one up. I think it's the second to last comic in this kind of Heartstopper series, which is going to be sad, but honestly, I love these characters. It's so cute, so happy. But at the same time, I love how Alice Oldsman, I think it's the author, has incorporated some pretty heavy topics that are very relevant and good to be talked about. And I think the way she represents these topics is very positive, it's very healthy, and even when the characters themselves are not taking the best decisions all the time, I just trust her as an author, and I feel like, again, the way that these topics are represented, I think is very positive and very healthy. And yeah, we should be talking more about mental illness in young people and queer people especially. So very, very happy to continue the Heartstopper journey and see what these two guys have up next. So that was it for today. Thank you and see you on the next one. Bye bye.